For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. And guess what? We are live on this Friday, November 30th. Thanks for tuning in. Why are we live? Because we are kicking off the release of my new book. And it's a big release. It's called Multiple Sarcasm, Stories Dripping in It. Go to our website, thescribbleshow.com. You can see the cover of the book. You can link through to buy it on Amazon, multiplesarcasm.com, iTunes, and where books are sold. So the reason we are live today, I'm going to be joined by several of my friends who have some sort of connection to the book. Now, the book is a bunch of different chapters of stories, situations that have happened throughout my life, and a lot of them during my work life, but also in my personal life. So everything from doing book signings to covering red carpet events and going on trips. I travel quite a bit for work, and you run into some really interesting characters. And with my luck, I end up getting a lot of fun stories out of them. So that's what the book is. And I say in today's world, there's racism, hatred, bigotry, conflict, that you just need to laugh. And so there's a disclaimer on the book that says, if you're easily offended, then don't even pick up the book. Take the stick out of your ass and enjoy it. It's made to make you laugh. I'm already stuttering. Here we go. Like I said, we are live, everybody. Can tell, 13 years of radio, and this is how I start off our show. But certainly we are looking forward to chatting with our friends today because, so like I said, there's a book signing. I'm really all over the place. There's a book signing chapter, so I'm going to have a fellow author join me, and he's going to talk about some book signing experiences that he's had, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, multiplesarcasm.com. The book is called Multiple Sarcasm. Look it up, Google it, find it, download it, order it, whatever you need to do. Just enjoy it and have a laugh. And, the significance of the book coming out today on Friday, November 30th, is something near and dear to me. Now, books usually traditionally come out on a Tuesday, and we decided to hold it until November 30th. Not necessarily the day of the week. It's not about the Friday. It's about November 30th. And a little bit later in the show, I will tell you the meaning behind it. And it's a very serious story, and so I'll get into that in just a little bit. I have this feeling we are going to be on a super-sized scribble today. There's no way we're keeping the show to 30 minutes. It's been a few years since I put out a book. The last one was called Put Down Your Damn Phone Already. Check that out on your phone. Put Down Your Damn Phone Already. And before that was The Official Guide to Being a Winnipeg Cheapskate, a bestseller. We've talked about it here on this show several times, and I'm still known in my hometown of Winnipeg as that cheap guy from the newspaper. So thanks for that recognition, everybody. If you're going to have a brand, that is the brand to have, let me tell you. Don't go to a restaurant, get your hair cut, go in a taxi. It's just, you're going to be, this asshole's not going to tip us, so, oh well. Oh, I just dropped a swear there, right? We are live on the podcast, everybody. All bets are off. All bets are off. We're going to get into some of our friends chatting with us right after this break here on The Scribble.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We are continuing this celebration of my big release. Oh, my big release. It's called Multiple Sarcasm. It is out today, and you can get it at multiplesarcasm.com Amazon, iTunes, and all the other fun bookstores that you now shop online and are putting out of business in a city near you. My friend Barry is joining us on the phone from Toronto. Hello, Barry.
Hello.
And thanks for joining us. And I wanted to get you on for this chapter about bad neighbors. And I know you've had some experiences with them, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to set up the chapter in the book that we're going to refer to. Is that I have the Russian neighbors. I did, anyway. They're gone now. And these were people that were just so inconsiderate of my property. And when they were first moving in, I was very open to welcoming them. I would see them outside in the backyard, going from their car to the house, moving boxes in, and I did everything I could to try and catch their glance and make eye contact. And then I'll go over in there and say, "Hi, I'm Jeremy. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the neighborhood." And they never once acknowledged my existence when I would be out in the backyard. And they also then had a cat that kind of wandered along the fence and was in my yard, and I've got 2 big dogs, and they didn't quite appreciate a cat in their territory, on their property. And then there was one instance where the cat all of a sudden ran up the shed and was on the roof of my house, and these people are telling me that's not our cat. And then their property was their property, but my property was their property. And so they had no problem parking in my driveway. And one time I even had a friend over. They blocked my friend into my driveway because they parked right behind him. So the reason that we've got Barry on the phone is, Barry, you've lived in several different places in Canada, and you have told me stories over the years about the awful, god-awful neighbors that you've had. And you've been in some of their apartments and their homes. And I want you to tell some of the stories, because you're saying that some of them just live in filth.
Absolutely. Like, you walk in the front door and your feet already get stuck to the floor. Like, you can't even you can't even get past the front door, actually.
Kind of makes you wonder, though, what kind of parties they're having, though. Could have been a good time.
Most likely at one point, but usually it's a good thing to clean up after it at some point, within the first few years of the party anyway.
But how do you do this now? If you secretly can't stand them, I'm an aggressive dick, let's be honest. You know that. You've known me a long time. Do you say something? Do you just have kind of the pleasant smile? How do you react when you see these people?
Depending. Sometimes I actually just tell them how I'm thinking about it, and just like, oh my goodness, like my foot stuck to your floor. Are you going to do something about this? But then, the neighbors I have on the other side of me right now, I'm just avoiding them like the plague. I mean, my barbecue's actually in one of the bedrooms. I'd rather just barbecue inside at this point than having to, talk to them or confront them.
Do you ever have the awkwardness of them inviting you over for, a party or a get-together? And do you politely say no? Do you go but just make it a quick visit?
Exactly. I go make it a quick visit, and I make sure that I have somebody on the ready to give me a call within about 20 minutes, and make sure that it sounds like there's an absolute emergency that I have to leave.
Oh, you do the bad date thing where people have, a friend on standby, and it's like, uh-oh, there's an emergency, I've got to go. So you do that.
Absolutely, 100% have to do that.
What do you do about noisy neighbors? Because, again, I mentioned in my book, the karaoke crasher. I think it's the first chapter in the book where I talk about neighbors it's a few houses down, so I guess they're not technically a neighbor, but in a way they are. And it was only about 8 o'clock on a Saturday, and I just didn't care for the noise. You're having a karaoke party in your backyard. I realize that there's no way that you can sort of keep the music to yourself. The fences aren't walls. Unless you're Trump at the Mexican border, but you can't stop the music from coming in your direction, and there's nothing preventing them from having music at 8 o'clock in the evening. But what about a party that goes on until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? Would you call the cops?
Absolutely.
Have you?
Now, yeah, I have in the past. But actually, I lived in a condo a few years ago, and I ended up breaking into the meter room where everybody's power meters are. And I've actually gone in and just shut down the power to the unit that was having the craziest rave party ever. And when they had no power in there whatsoever, I'm telling you, the party was dead pretty quickly.
Okay, here's another situation. It's happened to me recently where you hear a fight breaking out between the couple. I'm talking arguing, not physical. And I kind of feel like I'm being a bad neighbor because I'm kind of listening to what's going on, but it's entertaining as hell. So have you ever like sort of overheard an argument and kind of just tuned in because, hey, this is some good stuff?
Absolutely.
What have you heard?
Oh, you have to know what's going on in the neighborhood, right?
Right.
So, I have, but sometimes people like just freak out about the silliest little things, right? And it's just watching them get, like making everything a bigger item, and then they start talking about, like they start bringing family into it, and they bring in friends into the equation, and all of a sudden, like, you'd be surprised what kind of blow-ups I've heard, especially with the neighbors next to me right now. That's probably why I'm barbecuing inside.
But it's so easy to judge them too, because, and it's entertaining, and I mean, we're laughing at other people's expense in that moment, but it's just like those. I call one of the neighbors now that I call Teen Mom, because it never fails that on a Saturday night when they're drinking next door, which again, as far as I know, they're not breaking the law, especially now with Canada's marijuana laws, that undoubtedly, after however many drinks they've had, I guess they're just aggressive drunks. They're mean drunks. They're mad drunks. And when they have their friends over, and I can hear them in the backyard, it's, one of them's always having a breakdown about something. Or when the friends are there, the guy is like, I ruined it. She's never going to talk to me again. And then the girls are in the front street, or the front of the on the front sidewalk, and they're in the front, and they're talking about, they're bitching about the guys. And in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, I need 2 cameras here. I need one to be recording this one. I got to be listening to the back. Like I'm missing half of the story. And so I'm not kidding you. This is how sad my life is. Well, I mean, it's 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday, so I really wouldn't be doing anything else. Is that I'm kind of going from window to window to hear both sides of the story, as you would like a scene on a TV show where you're cutting from one room to the next. Is that sad that I do that?
No, I wholeheartedly endorse that. Actually, come to think of it, last night I heard my neighbors having this big heated conversation because he didn't know where the weed was, and he was positive that his girlfriend had it last, and he's like, I'm coming down from my high, I need the weed right now, and like, so, where did you hide it? And they were like screaming at each other like bloody murder, and I kind of like, I was on the other side of the fence, and I'm like, maybe it's, I don't know, like in your kitchen, or like, have you checked your fridge? Have you checked your freezer? And literally 20 minutes later, they come back and like as stoned as can be, and they're like, it was in the freezer all this time, and we thought somebody stole it. So like, wow. You never know.
And this is the thing. Full disclosure: I've never touched marijuana in my life. I've never even touched an actual cigarette in my life. But I believe that would be one of those things where it would almost be like a wine bottle. I'm going to pretty much know where I left it, I would think.
One would hope.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, you talk about hearing neighbors. So I'm going to go there. Have you overheard sex?
Many times. Especially in one of the condo buildings I was at. Like, you could just, the way that they set up these places, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they end up putting people's master bedrooms, on each other's walls, right? Mm. So, not only do you hear, like, the banging of the headboard right up against your headboard, pretty much, it sounds like, but, right. I mean, all the additional moaning and groaning and everything else that goes with it.
Is it creepy, or is there something kind of hot about it, though?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Depending on who's on the other side, sometimes it can be a little bit hot, and other times, like, oh my goodness, you don't want to hear it, you don't want to know about it.
I love that it took you 10 seconds to answer that. I love putting Barry on the spot and making him squirm, but...
You do that so well. well.
These are legitimate questions because you know that I lived with my parents for 25 years and then I moved into a house. So I've never had neighbors that were sharing a wall. And maybe I guess in a hotel I have technically in a way. But no, even in a hotel I've never overheard something like that. So, you know, we'll see. And with my neighbors, they're always fighting. So I don't know that maybe they have their makeup session, but anyway. Anything else that you want to share about neighbor experiences?
I did have one neighbor that, we knew that they were having some financial issues, that's for sure. Just by looking at their front yard, they had 3 broken down cars in it. And so, that was kind of already a giveaway, and they were, constantly trying to get taxis, and you could tell that they were, running away from taxi drivers, too. So pretty sure they didn't pay their fare. Then a couple of months ago, the Rent-A-Center truck came up and was trying to, repossess the furniture that they owned, because I guess they weren't paying their rental fees for their furniture. And all of a sudden, I heard the neighbors screaming and hollering, and they just started throwing all the furniture, out their windows and out the back door, and it was all over my backyard and part of their backyard. And they kind of said to the people, "You want your furniture? Go pick it up."
How often?
That was really interesting. The police ended up having to get involved too, and yeah, there was there were exploded pillows everywhere, and and all sorts of lawn ornaments.
See, here's the deal. When I had the Russians on the other side of me, they had a really, really bad patio table sort of a setup where I think they just kind of threw a bunch of things together. So they had an actual patio table and then kind of 2 kitchen chairs from the 70s and then one of those fishing sort of director's chairs kind of things. And it was almost wow, you didn't even try. So I felt like a creepy neighbor when I went upstairs in my bedroom because I overlooked their backyard. And I was like, all right, I'm going to look around. I got to take a picture of this. I got to do it. Is that creepy, taking a picture, through the blinds, taking a picture of your neighbor's yard?
I can't say that I've done it before, but I could see why you would in that case.
Because that's one of those risks of social media these days, though, where I can post that thinking that people are going to have a laugh about it, but then that's also one of those things that can blow up in your face that people are like, that's creepy that you're taking pictures of your neighbor's yard.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'd be still laughing at the photo for sure.
Barry is on my recipient list for when I do have the randomness that I like to send out to people. So.
Indeed.
All right. Well, again, the book is called Multiple Sarcasm. You can get it at multiplesarcasm.com, on Amazon, iTunes, and really anywhere else that digital books are sold. Barry in Toronto, thanks so much for celebrating my big release today. I hope it was good for you.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Come again.
Always.
All right. Thanks, Barry.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
We are back celebrating the release of my new book called Multiple Sarcasm, and again, you can get it at multiplesarcasm.com and on iTunes and Amazon and anywhere else you legally download books. And I just want to beat Omarosa and Bob Woodward in the charts, so please do get it. I'm joined by one of my friends from Bachelor Nation. Holly is joining us to talk about a section, or maybe there's a couple sections in the book about travel, because I travel quite a bit for work, and I run into a lot of people. And I don't always find them the most pleasant, because they make the experience really obnoxious and annoying. Holly, thanks for joining us, and I understand you have a trip coming up, right?
I do. I have a cruise coming up.
Okay. I've never taken a cruise, but one of the segments that we were talking about before going on the air, one of the sections, in the book, is the traveling fools. And it seems like when I'm in Mexico, and I believe you're going to a hotspot destination as well, right?
Yes, we're going to Grand Cayman, Mahogany Bay, Belize, and then Cozumel.
Oh, look at you, name dropper. Okay, I haven't done that many places. But it seems like when it's a destination like that, and for instance, it's Puerto Vallarta, we love our friends at the Puerto Vallarta Tourism Board, and locally everybody that teams up with us, there are people that are just, I guess, too excited, and they end up acting the fool, as I say. And one of the stories in the book that I wrote about, which you were laughing about, is the people who are know-it-alls, and also that just don't shut up. And so I was on a boat cruise, and the story is in the book. I was on a boat cruise, and this guy just pointed out every apartment. He lived there for so long, and we were going to go watch some dolphins and whales, and he was really annoying, and he was by himself, and he was playing with his camera. He just got a new digital camera, and was doing test shots, and really blew the batteries. And so when we finally got out into the water where we were doing the watching, the wildlife or the mammal watching, his batteries basically died, and his camera was crapped out on him, and he didn't have spare batteries. And I think that if he wasn't such a dick, people probably would have offered him spare batteries to help him out, but you just don't want to. And maybe it's just I'm a prick like that. But tell me, you've traveled a bit, and I know you've even traveled with a coworker or just colleagues. You're going on this cruise, and you told me about this Facebook group that's happening. I didn't realize people do this. So what is it?
So after I booked the cruise, I'm traveling with a coworker. She told me about we're traveling on Carnival Cruise Line, and they created a Facebook group page for our particular cruise. And she told me to join the group, and it gives you all kinds of information on the cruise and, what's going on. So I joined it. Well, after I joined it, there's, people posting in the group like, hey, wherever everyone's from, and people will answer where they're from, that sort of thing. And they just talk about, various excursions they're going to go on when we get to port. So it's just that sort of thing.
But now, I don't want you to lie, because you told me this off the air. Some of the people are already pretty annoying, right?
Yes, one in particular is extremely annoying, and I'm going to avoid her at all costs when I get on the cruise ship.
Well, now, part of the reason is because I said that there's multiple chapters in the book about travel, and one of them that I write is the Cuba Cougar. And when you were telling me about this person, it reminded me of the Cuba Cougar. And this is somebody who years ago, probably close to 11 years ago now, when I went to Cuba, there was this woman who I said was kind of like the welcome wagon, the unofficial welcome wagon, and she was fluttering around. We had a mechanical problem with the plane, so we stopped in Jamaica first, and you have to kind of just sit by the gate. You've got to wait at the terminal there because we could be leaving at any minute, they tell you, and you really couldn't go anywhere. You were that fearful that the plane would leave without you, even though realistically you know that that's not possible. And she was going around to every single person. Now, I was there. This was a work trip. We were doing a tourism thing in Cuba, and I brought out my laptop, and she noticed that, and she just jumped on that. Oh my God, you're bringing a computer to Cuba, talking a mile a minute. And I was like, I need a taser, or do you have Ritalin or something? I just don't. And it was just so obnoxious because she was just fluttering around, she was hyperactive, like a moth trapped in a net. And then when I finally did get to the resort in Cuba, sure as hell, just my luck, she's in the same resort as me, and her room is across the hall from me. And for the entire however long I was there, it was just whenever I would open my door to leave my room, she just happened to be there. She just happened to be walking by. And it was just so maddening. And then by the end of this, and this is where I think that you're going to end up seeing her in full force on your cruise, Holly, is that she knew Margot and Jerry. And she introduced me to Margot and Jerry. And I know what everybody's thinking right now. Who are Margot and Jerry? I have no flippin' idea who Margot and Jerry are. but I was introduced to them and invited to dinner with them. Like, it was just so weird that she knew all about their relationship. She told me all about them. And I just thought, you're annoying the piss out of these people too? Like, back off. And so, she means well. She means well. She was just overly excited. She was overly excited about the trip. And I just kind of thought, like, it really got to the point. I was literally, like, peeking around. So if I was going to the beach, I would actually go and scope it out to make sure that I couldn't see her. And then she was a power walker as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden she pops up behind me because she just happened to be walking by. And she did it a couple of times. Now, Holly, because I'm so hate-filled like that, you know that karma got me then when I got home, because then a few years later, fast forward, I was in Winnipeg. I was at home. And I had just got back from walking I had one dog at the time. I was walking my dog, and all of a sudden I see this woman power walking across the street, and I'm just turning up my sidewalk, and sure as hell, it's this woman. Come to find out,
oh my God.
She lives, it was quite a long street that I was on. She lived on the same street, and then struck up a conversation asking me if I'm going anywhere anytime soon, and da-da-da-da-da, and I just thought, wow, it's come full circle. However many years later, here she is, and I just, and she was looking for a travel buddy. Now, you traveled with a coworker before, and I know you were telling me a story about how it wasn't quite that fun for you because a coworker was going through some things, right?
Yeah, she, this was when we went to Cancun last year. We had planned this vacation months and months in advance, and she decided to have some corrections done to her breast augmentation 3 weeks before our trip went. So when we get to Mexico, she still has sutures and stitches, and so she was very limited to what she could do. And I told her when we went there, the one thing I wanted to do, I didn't care about going on a bunch of excursions, but I love to snorkel. That's my favorite thing to do, and I wanted to go snorkeling. And I was going to book it the day after we got there. Well, she wanted to give it a few more days to heal because she wanted to be able to go, and she asked me if I would wait until Friday to book the excursion. And mind you, we're leaving Saturday. And she said she thought she would be good by then. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and wait for you. And keep in mind, I didn't mind going by myself. When she told me that she, had the surgery and she wasn't sure if she was going to be able to snorkel, I was like, well, that's okay. I can go by myself. I have no problem doing that. But because she asked me to hold off and wait to the last minute to go, I agreed to do that. So Friday comes and a hurricane is brewing out in the sea, and it's creating bad weather. Now, the hurricane didn't hit us, but we got the outskirts of it in Cancun, and it created bad weather. So my snorkeling trip got canceled, and I didn't get to go. So I was extremely, extremely irritated and upset about that.
How did it all end up? Do you still talk to this person today?
I do. I do. She's one of my childhood friends, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to let something like that ruin our friendships. But, after I pouted and, cussed a little bit and got it out of my system, I got over it and forgave her.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got her on the line right now, and so I just wanted you to...
Sure you do.
That is totally something I would do if we had the time. I would absolutely do that. I would. Don't put it past me. So, again, we're celebrating the release of the new book. It's called Multiple Sarcasm. You appreciated the travel chapters, and I don't want to put you on the spot like you're patting me on the back or kissing my butt, but is there any other section of the book that stands out to you?
The one that stands out the most is your trip to, I can't remember, was it Louisiana? I can't remember where you went. A coworker was traveling with you, and y'all were going to work at some convention. And the stories that you wrote about her behavior, I was flabbergasted. I could not believe she was behaving like that.
The airport roach, I believe, is what you're talking about.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, the train wreck and the airport roach. Yeah, this woman who, she was a salesperson at a publishing company, and she was just excited to take this work trip, and she had never gone to a convention for one of the clients before, and she definitely made it well known. And this was also the first time that she had met the client. I had been there for a while, so I knew the people and had relationships with them. And this was her first introduction to the entire group of people. And this is like a $1 million client for the company. And it was just, she was a disaster. She was a nightmare. Coincidentally, her hotel room was also across the hall from mine when we were at the hotel. And her cigarette smoke and her marijuana smoke were somehow sweeping under her door across the hall and coming into my room. And you know that if you're in a no-smoking hotel room, you have to pay if they've got to clean it and get that stink out. And finally, when we were leaving, after this culmination of days of dread, we were at the airport together, and she then asked me, or she told me that she's got a roach in her, I don't know if it was in her cigarette package, I don't remember where it was, but she had a roach on her, and I didn't know what that was. That's how naive I was. And I said, what do you mean? And then she's asking me what she should do with it. And at that point, I was just like, this is the type of girl who will take me down with her, even though I've got nothing to do with it. Because, again, you have to read the book to understand why I felt that way. And I just said, I don't even want to know what you do. This is one of those things where you're on your own, I'm turning around. And because this was shortly after 9/11, and so airport security was obviously a little bit more hyped up. And they've eased off a little bit now. But, yeah, we're going back more than 10 years ago when, they looked at every little thing at security. And I just thought, wow. And I remember going home, and our vice president, and it was a small company, so it's, the vice president, I went for lunch and drinks with him. But when I got home, when we flew in to Winnipeg that morning, I went almost right to my bathtub, which is sort of my safe zone. That's my decompression area. And he was asking me how the flight was with her, because she was just in a bad mood because her brand new purse started on fire at the final wind-up of this convention because she left it on the table by a candle. And she was just ripping him to shreds in the taxi going to the airport, and then when we landed in Winnipeg. And so when I told him that I was in the bathtub at 10 o'clock in the morning, that actually was a trigger for him going, uh-oh, what happened? And he was actually concerned. And sure enough, it was because she compromised, my safety at the airport. And needless to say, she wasn't at the company for much longer after that, but it certainly was a crazy travel experience. So yes, there's a theme with what we're talking about today, Holly, with our travel stories. And I think that's almost in life when you get a lot of the more interesting moments, isn't it?
I think so. The older you get, the more ridiculous experiences you have.
Tell me, if you were to write a book like this about just silly situations or funny things, tell me what the top 2 stories of your life would be.
Oh gosh. Trying to think.
I'll give you a moment to think about it. Again, you can go to multiplesarcasm.com. You can get the book there, and also on Amazon, iTunes, and a whole bunch of other digital bookstores. It's great the way technology is, and you can read it literally right now if you download it. So there you go. And I know, Holly, you're gonna frame that book and you're gonna put it up and you're gonna tell everybody about it, of course. So your 2 funny stories for a sarcasm book that you're writing.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, give me one. I'll let you off the hook with one.
Sarcasm stories. And I know I've got a ton of them. I'm just drawing a blank.
Let's go on your most embarrassing moment as a kid.
Oh, I've got a great one. A good embarrassing moment.
Okay.
So when I was in San Antonio, I was in a wedding. One of my best friends was getting married in San Antonio. And of course, we had the bachelorette party in San Antonio as well. I don't know if you've ever been to San Antonio. San Antonio has a river walk,
okay.
And the river walk is just loaded with restaurants and bars and shopping, all kinds of. It's a really cool place, fun time. So before the wedding, all the girls went to the bachelorette party, and of course, the drinks were flowing. We were all hammered and trashed. And by the end of the night, we were like, all right, let's wrap it up and go back to our hotel room. So me and my best friend were walking back through the hotels, and we're trying to find our way back to the hotel because we got lost. Thank goodness my best friend is from Peru, and she speaks Spanish fluently, because everyone we came in contact with that we were asking for directions how to get back to the hotel only spoke Spanish, so that was helpful. We found a restroom, went to the restroom, and then started making our way back to the hotel. And as I am approaching our door, I get the little key card out, and I'm trying to unlock the hotel room door, and my friend Maribel says, "Holly, what is that hanging out the back of your shirt? Is that your bra?" Like, what are you talking about? And I look behind my shirt. When I went to the bathroom, I had a bodysuit on that snapped at the crotch. I forgot to snap it back, and it was hanging out the back of my shirt the whole time I was walking through the Riverwalk in San Antonio back to my hotel room.
Wow. And everybody, we have those pictures on our website now. We're just getting those from Maribel. We've got them? Okay. We're going to tweet those out as well, everybody. You can want to check that out. How drunk were you? What were you having?
We were having lots of margaritas, lots of tequila shots.
But none of that pineapple rum that I have, right?
No. Not in Texas. In Texas, it's all about the tequila.
Oh,
margaritas.
Yes. Right, that's right. That's where they transitioned me into a cowboy. Very convincing, I should tell everybody. All right. So, again, multiplesarcasm.com. You can get the book on Amazon, iTunes, and all the other digital bookstores. Holly, thanks so much for loving the book and helping us hawk it, really.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And enjoy your cruise.
Thank you.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
We continue the celebration of my book launch, Multiple Sarcasm. You can check it out at multiplesarcasm.com, Amazon, iTunes, really, I guess, anywhere where you buy digital books. And fellow author and my friend Tim is joining us on the line now to talk about a chapter in the book regarding book signings. Tim is an author. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Good. All right, so let's fill everybody in on our backstory. We met coincidentally in Mexico. I don't even know, 5 or 6 years ago. I don't recall how long ago. We met on a boat cruise, and it's one of those things where I was on a press trip, so I was there covering the area for the tourism board, and I was by myself, like a loner on this boat cruise. That's kind of one of the bad things. If I don't have producers in tow, they send me by myself. And so you were kind enough. Several people were kind enough to strike up a conversation, and we actually sat together for most of the boat cruise, chatting away, especially when we found out we have this connection of writing. We'll plug your books in just a second, okay? So,
no
but there was this instant connection that I guess authors just have, and it wasn't competitive. If anything, it was more, you were very supportive and giving me tips because you had already gone through the process. I had already, or was it putting out a book, or I had just put one out, which failed miserably. And that's where we started talking about book signings. Now, in the new book, Multiple Sarcasm, that's out November 30th, there's a chapter there where I talk about how these book signings are just dreadful because people expect the lineup around the block. I want you to tell me about your first book signing in a second, but everybody thinks like it's a Kardashian moment where there's going to be people camping out and the lineup around the block, and I was very ambitious. I thought, okay, I had this little tiny blurb in the newspaper on my first book, in the back of the book section. I'm like, that's enough. And people are going to come. They're going to come in droves, dozens. We're going to sell out. And it just bombed, and it's so embarrassing to sit there for 2-3 hours of people walking by. A lot of them give you this side glare like you're trying to sign them up for a credit card, and they walk right by. Have you experienced this? Tell me about your first book signing, Tim.
Oh, my goodness. Well, see, I write nonfiction. I'm a business author primarily, and yes, you have that moment, like you said, you phrased it very well, that Kardashian moment. You have these hopes and dreams that everyone and their grandmother literally is going to be there, especially when you're launching your very first book. And my experience was similar to yours. Put out a fantastic book, got numerous people to preview the book, write great testimonials, did a great campaign on social media, and it's time for one of my first in-person appearances at a very popular independent, though, book bookstore in New York City where I live and where I grew up. And, we did a lot of press for it, and I get there, books in hand, literally hundreds of books, and they place me right towards the front of the book. And the way the manager comes over to me and says, we're going to have all these people, they're all going to be here, and they're really hyping it up. And I said, we want you to say a few words, give a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to have our book signing and all these people. So, of course, I'm getting all excited about this, and I'm sitting there for hours, pacing back and forth, waiting for the people to come in. And sure enough, what ends up happening? The doors open, 3 people walk in. 3 people who walk in: my assistant, his wife, and my editor.
Oh, wow.
All 3 people. You want to feel like having your ego deflated and spending all this time, over a year, writing and rewriting, putting things together, finally getting your product out, and feel like an utter failure? Well, that was it. That was my experience. So what ends up happening is that as the day was progressing, more people did come in. But of course, again, I'm a business author. Unless you're a business person, most people haven't even heard of me. They won't even read necessarily my stuff. Again, I've been published all over the place, but I'm not a household name to the common person on the street who's coming in to buy, the latest J.K. Rowling fiction book at the time, or what have you. So I ended up having an experience like you, where people thought I was just there because I was in a suit and tie and everything, and they thought I was selling timeshares in Florida. And why was I even there? And who is this guy? And it was just one of the absolute humbling yet worst experiences of my life.
And it's one of those things where I remember being, again, probably late teens, early 20s. I remember distinctly going to a mall, going into a bookstore, and seeing one of those guys, you know what I'm talking about, one of those guys, an author, sitting at the table. And I remember laughing, going, look at that, nobody. And nobody is there. He's just sitting by himself. He's a nobody. And then fast forward however many years later, and that is me. Now, one of the things that I learned was that you need to do a lot of promotion of the book, because with my first book that I wrote, which again was really, really bad, and it wasn't even well written, I think I just sort of rushed out for the sake of writing a book because everybody was telling me to do that, was I did an actual book launch, which is different than just sitting at a table doing a book signing. So this was, again, at a very independent bookstore, the biggest one in my hometown of Winnipeg. It is the bookstore, everybody knows it. And so if you have an event there on a Sunday afternoon, foot traffic is guaranteed. And so I thought, okay, yeah, you know what? Set that up. They wanted, I think, 80 copies of the book ahead of time. They had it on the table there. I was going to do some readings from different chapters and things. And again, same thing like you. I had 6 people there. All of them were people that I knew and had previously bought the book from me directly. So yes, I was cocky, and I had this, it's been in the paper, people have been spreading the word. It's embarrassing also, too, because then the store, the employees will sort of do that, it's been slow in here today, and, they try to make you feel better, but they're just saying that. They're not going to go and say, wow, what a terrible turnout you had. But again, and I remember going home that day, and I was humiliated, I was devastated, and I turned off my phone, I wasn't answering, and then eventually, when I finally did turn on my phone, I had a text message from my cousin, who was one of the people who, I guess, felt like a charity case to show up. She knows that I love my onion dip and some chips, and so the text was, take a look what's hanging from your back door, and she had left me a bag of chips and some onion dip, in a grocery bag. That kind of comforted, but it was so embarrassing, because again, you have this I don't want to say cocky, confidence, let's say. And, this is the best book in the world and everybody's going to buy it. And then just nobody shows up. So you must also have experiences where you get the same kinds of people that show up to a book signing. And let me just set the scene here. You will have the person who is going to chat your ear off. And maybe when you first started doing a book signing, Tim, you thought this is a guaranteed sale because they're interested, they're making the conversation. And then what happens? Well, good luck to you, and they walk away, right?
Absolutely. And I find in my experience now, I don't do traditional book signings anymore like most authors do. My book signings are at events that I'm speaking at primarily. And I'll have a line of people waiting to buy books, waiting to get an autograph, a picture, whatever, and you get that one person or two people that have read the book cover to cover or haven't read it at all and want to chat your ear off and ask you 1,000,001 questions, taking up the time of everybody else that's in line, and it just drives me absolutely crazy. I mean, some of these people mean well with their questions, but some of them also, it's as if they know better than you, you know? Mm-hmm. And like you said, some of them, they even walk away not even purchasing the book. I'm like, well, you're at this seminar or this conference that you spend hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to attend. I'm one of the featured speakers on the bill. You're here inquiring about my book. You don't want to pick up a copy? It's just like, what? Where did these people come from?
And it's different then, too, when they actually know you. So then fast forward several years later, then I write my book, The Official Guide to Being a Winnipeg Cheapskate, which we marketed very smartly. Before it was even released, I did the press rounds of every morning TV show, radio station, newspaper. We hyped up the book because my hometown of Winnipeg is known as being a cheap city. It was brilliant marketing. The book was not available anywhere. And then we have people going into Walmart, Costco, Chapters, chain in Canada, and asking for the book. That was when we went to the buyers of all those companies and said, look at every morning show, the hosts are saying, well, yeah, this is totally our city. And so the buyers in Montreal or Calgary, wherever they are, then said, okay, yeah, let's buy the book. So where they might have done consignment before, we did purchase orders. And so the book signings at that point completely change, because now, you said, you're not a household name in your circles there, but when you're in the newspaper every week, you're that cheap guy from the newspaper. So then it's almost, it's a good, bad thing, because yes, people are now coming to the table because they know you, and they heard you on the radio, they see you in the paper, and they know what you're talking about. But then because the title of the book, The Official Guide to Being a Winnipeg Cheapskate, they don't know anything about it. It's actually about creative ways to save and spend your money, so that you save money so that you've got more to blow on, frivolous things. But I guess some people take it the wrong way, and it's like, you're what's wrong with the economy. And I'm like, I'm being confronted at a book signing. It was just so awkward. So it's great that you know me and you recognize me. Now you're like saying that I'm doing things that are wrong. I'm like, I'm actually trying to help you so that you can, go and pay for anger management or something is what I'm doing. Did you ever have any awkward moments where you were just like, can somebody get this person away from me?
I've had a few stalkers.
Okay, tell me about that. Go ahead.
Who have been, called sycophants, that, love the stuff that I put out, love everything that I do online and whatever, and it's just sort of like, okay, the event is over, and they're hanging around, and they're in the hotel lobby, and they're, following me out to dinner with, some people. It's a little scary at times. I've had those types of experiences.
If you could give future authors some advice or a tip, not necessarily about a book signing, but something about the industry and putting out your first book, whether it's the process of writing it, the process of promoting, marketing it, what one piece of advice would you give?
One thing that I would say nowadays, I've published 4 books. I have my 5th one that's coming out next year in 2019. What I've learned is that you are your best public relations person. Don't rely upon, if you're being traditionally published, don't rely on your publisher. If you're independently published or self-published, you have to get out there, and you have to get the word out, and you have to be your best advocate in promoting your book to anyone. And, go to the audience if this is your second time around or writing a book, or even your first time, but you've done other things. Go to the people that know you best first and get them preview copies, get them to put reviews up on Amazon or anywhere else you purchase your books online. It really does help. It totally does help. And for crying out loud, film some video. People still want to see, even though they're reading your book, they still want to see that you're a human being and that you can make some connections. So put some stuff on YouTube or wherever you put your videos or on your websites. It totally helps out in creating that brand or that name recognition. And then you won't have, when you actually do have a book signing, you won't have the 3 people or 6 people showing up. You'll have more people doing that. Coming to see you and meet you. And hopefully they're not the crazies.
And be mindful what your brand is, because I've gone to the mall and all of a sudden I hear someone go, hey, that's that cheap guy from the newspaper. Yeah, okay. You know what? I'll take it, right? There is something to say about writing, because if some people love writing for this, they love the craft and they want to do it. That's something that I've also known, because you've probably experienced this. there's always an author that comes to a book signing and tells you their life story as well. And one thing that I've experienced from them is that they just want to do the writing. As you say, you've got to do the PR if you're going to do all this other stuff, because you need to have a business sense. It's not just a matter of great literary, you're good with grammar. It's not that. You really do in this day and age, because landing a publishing deal with a book deal with a publishing company is very, very hard nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the traditional publishing houses want people who have a proven track record. They're not going to take the risk on the unknown, who may be an incredible writer. Really, really great writer. But if you're not marketable, and whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter. If you're not marketable, they're not going to touch you. And, that's what I think is giving rise to a lot of the indie publications. And I'll have to say, I have friends who are New York Times best-selling authors multiple times over who have left the traditional publishing world and are self-publishing or going through independent publishers because they have that freedom, and also they have that that option to be a little more creative, shall we say, but they're also creative in their marketing, in the way they approach their audience.
And a lot of people think that because you don't get a book deal that you're sort of like a failed author, or you're not good enough. But here's the deal, is that if I prefer to not have one, because the way this works, and let's educate people here, is that let's say that your book is $15, 15, and you have to write the book. You then have to land a literary agent who's going to get their cut. Mm-hmm. You then have to go get a publishing deal with a publishing house. They're going to get their cut. And then the major store, let's just say Walmart, is going to then get their cut. They need to profit from the book, just as every other one down the chain is. So you end up becoming the lowest on the totem pole, in a sense. And it's not uncommon for an author with a book deal to be getting $60, $70, maybe $1 a book that is sold.
That's right. I know people who have literally have had bestsellers on the New York Times bestsellers list, and they're broke. They are broke for that reason, because you're only earning so many cents or so many dollars per copy. Everyone else is getting a larger cut. And with the traditional publishing deal, if they gave you an advance, if you're one of those lucky people, they're advancing you that money. They're expecting that the sales are so high that advance is being paid back. Otherwise, you're still on the hook for paying back your publishers if that advance, in many cases nowadays, if your book doesn't sell. And good luck trying to get another book published if your book fails. So, I'm a strong advocate for self-publishing or going the independent route as opposed to the traditional publishing houses. No disrespect against the big publishing houses. They are for some people. I think they're for people who are established, who are celebrities already, who have an army of people in marketing and PR, etc., that can handle that they're too busy, that they're doing whatever it is that they do, and the book is sort of like just another thing that they've done. But for people whose primary occupation or whatever is the writing or teaching or whatever it is that they do, you can't look to go to the traditional publishers in many respects, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one thing it's one thing for people to go and say, I'm going to be an author. I'm going to go and sit by the lake. I'm going to go, to the cottage for 3 weeks and just. That's not the reality. Maybe, like you say, about the advance, if you're Stephen King or whatever, sure, you're going to get that massive advance. But the reality is, an advance might just be $3,000, $5,000. And when you think of the actual time that you've put into writing it, days, weeks, months, whatever it might be, and then going back and reading it again, you're probably making about minimum wage based on how much time you're investing in it. And then again, with a book deal, you're signing over control of the name, the cover, the inside of the book, how it's marketed. And so there's something refreshing about doing it yourself. And again, it's not enough to go, okay, the book is out, and brush your hands and just think that it's going to sell itself. Because again, the reality is there's literally thousands and thousands of books in the actual bookstore, and you could be bottom shelf, because if you don't have a publishing company paying for that front-faced book or on the table right when you walk in the door, you're buried in the section that could be local interest because you happen to be a local author and that's where they put you.
Exactly.
So let's give a quick... Let's end on a gloomy note there. Let's talk very quickly then about your books and where people can get them.
Well, again, I'm a business author. My primary focus is on marketing. My latest book that came out about a year and a half ago is called No Nonsense Networking. You get all my books on Amazon, your local Amazon site. You can get them through Barnes & Noble. You can get them through my website, T as in Tim, M as in Michael, Houston, HOUSTON.com, and also through your independent booksellers. They can order those.
And we should just clarify that we absolutely do love the people who take an interest in our books and want to talk to us about it. I think we sort of gave it a negative tone talking about book signings and things like that. But, of course, the book is called Multiple Sarcasm, so we're being funny as well when we're talking about it. So we do appreciate everybody who shows up to our book signings and supports us and has the conversation because, again, you know what? That's better than the people who just look away and pretend you're not there, right? At least you spent some time talking to us. Yeah. All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much for celebrating the book with us today.
Hey, you're quite welcome. Congratulations. It is 269 pages of pure sarcasm, which is really great in this day and age. And let's face it, sometimes some of these stories are better than just a bottle of wine sometimes. So.
I'm going to put you on the spot again then. Favorite chapter of the book?
Favorite chapter, one besides your dreaded book signing, the Luncheon Ladies was one of my favorite, if not the favorite, because that's another one I could totally relate to, and I've been there. So I knew exactly what you were getting at, and it was just a fantastic book. Of course, the karaoke one was a really good one, too, but I like the Luncheon Ladies.
See, now we're just teasing all the chapters. All right, well, we'll have you back to go in-depth on other personal stories.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks very much,
for
Tim.
having me.
Appreciate your time.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Well, we're celebrating the release of my new book, the big release, the best release I could ever have. It's called Multiple Sarcasm, and chatting with people who have flip through the pages and can connect with some of the chapters. And so Michelle is joining us online. She's from my hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we actually met on a red carpet. And Michelle, there's a chapter in the book about red carpets.
Yes, there is.
Now, I want to know, in that chapter, I talk about some of my embarrassing moments and how I got a little bit too drunk on my first red carpet at Canadian Idol back in the day. And so we met on a red carpet in Winnipeg. Do you have any memories that stick out for you? First of all, is a red carpet what you thought it would be? Is it what you expected?
No, because, well, yes and no. It was very glamorous, and so was I, and that was probably my first mistake, is that I was wearing 3-inch heels and standing there for a very long period of time and absolutely dying because my feet were killing me, and I hadn't even talked to anybody yet at that point. So because we had to take our position and wait and wait and wait, and it was hurry up and wait, which I'm used to, but I kept wishing I was wearing flip-flops, that's for sure.
Did you make the mistake, though, when they tell you that your call time is, let's say, 5 o'clock to be there? Were you there even way before 5 o'clock just to make sure you weren't late because you were worried that they weren't going to let you in?
Absolutely. They said that my wait time, I think, was at around 4:30. I was there for sure by 3. Yeah, with hair done, full makeup, beautiful dress, looking absolutely amazing, and like I said, the 3-inch heels, and cursing that I didn't bring, never mind flip-flops, maybe my fuzzy slippers. It was, it was, I had to see a chiropractor, a few times after that first red carpet of mine.
But tell me, though, does it make sense to you? So I don't remember the exact timing, but let's say that you were supposed to be there at 5 o'clock because the carpet was starting at 6 o'clock. I mean, that's not how it works. I think people don't realize that. You obviously didn't. So if they say, media check-in, the cutoff is 5 o'clock, you've got to be here, no exceptions, I already know that I'm going to show up at 5:30, and the carpet is still not going to start until 6:15 or 6:30.
Right. well, I know that now. I didn't know it that day, and I've learned my lesson. So the next time I have the opportunity to do a red carpet, you can guarantee I'm going to be pulling a Jeremy Bradley and showing up 20 minutes before I have to be there.
Because I guess that people don't realize, though, is that you already have a spot on the red carpet. Like, your name is on a piece of paper that's taped to the floor. And so there's really nothing to get ready for. Like, you're kind of, I mean, yes, the TV crews, might have to set up a light, but there's already lights there for you. They're a nice yellow color to make sure that everybody's tanned. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but no, it's a learning. It's like anything else, right? It was a total learning. It's like the first time you have sex. Oh my.
You may become overly prepared or maybe underprepared. I don't know, but it was a real interesting opportunity. And now I guess I would know if I ever have the chance to do a red carpet again, I don't need to be there 2.5 hours ahead of time, and certainly to either bring another set of shoes or not wear such high heels to begin with.
See, this is how it all started.
And not try to look like a celebrity while I'm there.
No, this is the thing, is that, I've been doing red carpets for, I'm going to have to look back on the wall in the studio here. I don't know where the Canadian Idol one is. The Canadian, back in, hold on now, I'm really occupied here. Canadian Idol 2007 media press room, it says on my badge back behind me on the wall of fame. And so that first red carpet, this was, really before the days of social media to a point, right? Over 11 years ago, people weren't glued to it as much as they are now. But you're right, like, the reporters were not the stars. People were dressed normally. And now, a Los Angeles red carpet, which I am on quite a bit, the reporters are suddenly dressed up because they're doing selfies, right? We weren't doing that back in the day. And so now it's kind of like, this is my time to shine. And so I think every celebrity also expects to end up doing a selfie with every reporter, because that's just what the ask is. And so it's not uncommon to, for the reporters to be getting dressed 3 hours ahead of time as though they are the star of the red carpet, which I think we saw a lot of at that event.
Well, for sure. I mean, let's face it, being in Winnipeg, this is not something that happens on a regular basis. It was a bit of a special occasion for those of us who are part of the media and don't get that opportunity all the time to interview people like David Foster, Michael Bolton, Seal, Sinbad. It was, quite something. And so you yourself are feeling like you have to be part of the red carpet, per se. So, and it was a special occasion to some degree. I'm not sorry I did it, because at the end of the day, I ended up doing selfies with the likes of Michael Bolton and Seal. I'm really happy that I looked like something, and maybe like one of the red carpet participants. So it was kind of neat.
What was something that maybe happened that you didn't expect, or something you did expect to happen that didn't?
I think that there were a few things that happened. What was really interesting to me was the flow of the celebrities going down the red carpet, how they were managed. I had never seen that. Like, I'd seen it on TV before, but to be there in person was really quite interesting to see the movement, and how you almost had to flag that. You did almost have to flag them down if you wanted them to talk to. They didn't just necessarily stop at every single person. So that was kind of interesting. And I'm a don't take no for an answer kind of girl. So, I definitely, if I saw someone I really wanted to talk to, I made sure it was known that I needed to talk to them. The other thing is, there was one celebrity in particular who, this was an event for to support organ donation for the David Foster Foundation, and one celebrity that I was very anxious to meet, and I had an opportunity to interview, when I had asked the question of, so are you an organ donor? He sort of stepped back and said, is that a trick question? And I was taken a little bit aback by that, and I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, no, I'm not an organ donor. And I had to very quickly think on my feet and, ask him something else. And then after he walked away, after I had my picture taken with him, of course, and he walked away, and I just looked at my camera guy and said, what the heck just happened? And he's like, was that a trick question? I don't know if that was a trick question. So, that was kind of funny. And we laughed about it, and didn't really didn't really get offended or think too much about it, but that was an interesting moment.
But fast forward years later, you're still thinking about it.
Well, yeah, because we're talking about it right now. It's not something I lose sleep about, Jeremy.
Oh, I think it might be. But there was a moment that I had. Now, let's talk about one of the stories that I tell in the book, Multiple Sarcasm, available now on Amazon, iTunes, and other bookstores. But
it's a very good book, by the way.
Thank you.
Seriously, there's so much in here that's so much fun to read.
One of the most embarrassing red carpet, and again, I've had hundreds of interviews on red carpets. One of them, it was during the America's Got Talent finale back in whatever year it was, and the winner was there. Now, this was after the results were announced, so he was the winner at this point. This was probably about 20 minutes after he was crowned winner, and he's standing there. He's got this woman on his arm, and you know how they drag out the results. So you'll see the close-up of him, and then you'll see a close-up of a judge, and then you'll see a close-up of the audience, and then you'll see a close-up of the loved one, right? There's that it's just the drama is dragged out. And so I said to him, what's going through your mind? There's the close-up of you, and then we see your mom, and I kind of motioned to the woman, and she says, "I'm his wife." And this was one of those things where, just like you're kind of like, oh, and I said, I just mean, I'm just, talking about your loved ones in the audience. I'm just saying, and I was just motioning my hands. And that was, again, a moment where we're live, and there's no take-sees, back-sees, and it was just a quick cover, but it was just one of these humiliating experiences. And it's funny because this came up a couple of years ago when Kathy Lee Gifford and Hoda Kotb were on the show, and they had an embarrassing moment with Martin Short asking about how his wife is. Well, she had recently died. And
I remember that. I totally remember that.
So they kind of had, and when they were on the show, they asked me what my embarrassing moment was, and I said, well, I actually got an NBC-related embarrassing moment during a live show, and it was that. And so, like you said, it's grateful that, it wasn't live. Yours were being videotaped, but they weren't actually broadcast live, so you can go back to the editing room and do something. And that's one of the thrills of a red carpet. I know that you report news, and you've done news for several years now, and so that's kind of what got me into it. And then, again, another red carpet moment from America's Got Talent. I don't know if this was the same year, but again, here, like you say about the red carpet, it's rapid fire, and there's people coming at you. Generally, they're coming from the same area. They're coming from the same direction, I mean. And so you see them, so you've got notice, because they're talking to 10 other people before you, or more. If you're at the AMAs, they've got 40 other outlets before you. And so all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear in my ear, Cobra Starship on the right. Well, the red carpet was working left to right. They should not be coming from the right. And so the carpet was actually kind of working in both ways. They were coming from both sides. And so here's a moment where we had no idea that Cobra Starship was even on the show, because we're outside on the red carpet. There was a little tent where we could go and watch the show and drink if we wanted to. But we were out because they were bringing celebrities during commercial breaks and things. And so none of us, the Cobra Starship was a surprise guest that season. We had no idea on the finale that they were there. We knew the other announced guests. And so I'm sitting here going, whoa, I know this group because we played the music on the show. I don't know any of their names right now in the moment. And so that's another one where it's like, oh, hey, look, it's Cobra Starship. Hey, why don't you guys introduce yourself? And that's kind of my go-to. So just a little tidbit for people who listen to us doing red carpets. A couple of times, if I don't know who the person is, and I say, oh my God, you know what, they can't see you, but say who's joining us right now. That means I have no idea who you are. There we go.
It's kind of like meeting somebody and you're with someone, and if you don't if you don't do an introduction right away, it means you can't remember their name. Right? Right.
So which red carpet would you want to cover in the future?
Oh, wow. Well, outside of Winnipeg.
Well, of course.
Obviously, because we don't get them here very often.
No.
You know what? I think I would absolutely love to cover something like the Toronto International Film Festival. That would be something that would be extremely cool, still in Canada. And I think even something down in the States, which likely be the Emmys. That would be fun.
Why the Emmys?
Because I'm a big TV watcher, and I've become, I'm more of a TV watcher than I am a movie watcher. So as much as the Academy Awards and the Oscars would be fabulous,
I think that the Emmys would be extremely entertaining for me because I am very much a TV watcher, even though TV, what is TV now? I mean, everything's streaming, online and so on, but with Netflix and Crave and all of that. But I think that I would more assimilate with that kind of a crowd, and it would be a lot of fun. I think it would be great fun. Music wise, I think it would be something like, quite honestly, the Junos, because I'm a big supporter of Canadian talent.
We don't cover the Junos anymore, and I won't get into why.
Well, that's okay. I mean, look, I think even I'm not a big country music fan, but the CMAs, they're huge, and there's so many people that are part of that, and that would be fun too. But honestly, if I were to say my number one would be the Emmys. That would be if I had a choice. If someone said any red carpet that you could ever cover, which would it be? It would be the Emmys.
Okay.
American television.
Okay, there were a couple of... We're out of time already, but there are a couple other moments in the book that sort of jumped out at you, since that's the purpose of this chat, is to promote the book. You had some favorites. Go for it.
Well, yeah, so I think what I told you is The Lunching Ladies, which is one of your early chapters in the book, really resonated with me because my mom, who has since passed, lived in a retirement community, but this reminded me so much of people who would come, like as if you were going to her place and talking to them about your book, and you thought you were going to be, speaking in front of a bunch of professional women, and it ended up being a bunch of female seniors. And I have to say that I just about lost it. Well, in fact, I did lose it when you said lunch was a soft salad and an easily chewed stew with dessert so cold it only affected real teeth. And that's just awesome. That was I was laughing because that's like what lunch was when I went to go visit my mom.
Let's set the scene for everybody, because
it was funny.
It
was just hilarious, and they weren't in a personal care home, by the way. It was like a retirement community, 55 plus place, but that's exactly what it was. And you talk to them about, finding bargains on dog food and. Pardon the expression, they were lapping it up.
Oh my! But okay, so we got to rewind and tell people the story then. So as one of my dogs comes right beside me here, yes. So I was invited to speak at this luncheon for Canadian Women's Club of Canada, I think was the name. And so in my head, I'm sitting there going, "This is almost going to be like a Chamber of Commerce or like business women." And so I was invited like probably more than half a year before I actually went and did the speaking, and I put it off. I just really hadn't thought about it. I was asked, will you speak at our lunch? I was like, yeah, okay, fine. They'll email me when it's a reminder and time to go. And so about 2 days before, I was sitting in bed with my laptop going, I guess I should write like what I'm going to say. I'm like the keynote, person at this lunch. And so, when you write, as Michelle does, she'll understand that you write for your audience. So if you're writing for a younger audience, you're going to use different lingo and terminology. If you're writing for seniors, you're going to speak differently. And so I targeted it for about 40 to 55-year-old women. And not that any of the humor was crude or, offensive or off color, but just not something you would say to a 70 or 80-year-old, because the references they just wouldn't understand. And so when I got to the event, and it was at the convention center, so it's not like it was at a nursing home or anything, I get to the room, and then there's all these old women in there. And so in my head, this is where my ignorance comes in. In my head, I was like, oh crap, what did I sign up for? Like, what am I doing here? What is this? And then once they took me around the room, it was like I was their grandson. They were very excited to see me. They were very happy that I was there. These were the coolest women who had the best sense of humor. And as you say, they were asking me about my book. My book is called The Official Guide to Being a Winnipeg Cheapskate. And they asked to give away a book, and I said, sure, that's fine. And they even did a contest where they wrapped the book in newspaper, which they also had my column in the newspaper. They wrapped it in twine, and they said, oh, look, we're saving on wrapping paper. So it was very funny. It was very clever. And I kind of felt bad because when I left there 2 hours later, whatever it was, I had this like new appreciation for these women. I'm like, these were active, vital women. And again, in the moment, it's kind of weird that, they're playing you up on a piano up to the head table, and they're singing God Save the Queen, and there's a prayer and all these things.
Which you mouthed, by the way, and you didn't actually sing.
I didn't know it. And so it was very awkward. It was very weird in the moment. And then again, in my head, I'm sitting there going, oh crap, I can't even say everything that I've prepared. So I'm basically winging it entirely. And so something that's mentioned in the book is that once there was a question and answer thing at the end, and somebody asked what my best cheapskate tip was. And I had said about how I got free bags of dog food. And so it seems like the word dog was the trigger, because everybody then started asking me about my dogs. And I thought, you guys aren't even asking about the book or anything like that. You just care about the dogs, which was really kind of cute. And and at the end, when they had me selling my book at the back, and we were doing a signing, and we sold out of them. We ran out of books, and there was a big pile of cash on the table, and some of them were, saying that I was so great, and, I wish my grandson was like you, and it was really totally a 180 from the way I felt when I got there, and what I expected of them, and what I thought of them, and then how they made me feel, and when I left, it was a really, really fun afternoon. So that's
and the smell of mothballs didn't bother you after that, right? Because that's what you talked about. Like, you came in and the smell of mothballs, but then, I could tell by the end of the chapter you were totally enamored with these women. So.
Well, because I was hypnotized. That's what it was. I was like huffing. It was just, I was out of it. No, again, it was, like I said, they were great women. I enjoyed every minute of it. As awkward, as uncomfortable as it was when I first got there, I really... And, it goes really back to this whole thing about judging a book by its cover, right? I mean, you can totally think that you know a group, or you just have these preconceived notions of who they are and what they are, and you can just be totally wrong. And so this is a case where I'm glad that I was wrong, and they were so nice to me, and it was just really cool. So, yeah.
So it was a fun time in the end. And that does resonate with me too. But I loved how I think more than anything, I just loved how you're, explaining what the lunch was like. That was so descriptive, and it just made me laugh out loud, because I could relate to that, going to visit my mom at her place, where, everybody didn't have to feel a thing except for me, because they all had their dentures in. I don't know.
I hope they're still around. Yeah. No, they were lovely women. Lovely women. Yes. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for for going on 26 minutes here on this. Which,
well, thank you for asking me, and for sending me the book, and for providing me for a bunch of laughs. And it's really great. And I wish you nothing but the best as you pump out this great read.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you on another red carpet in Los Angeles next time. Okay.
You know what? You tell me, you invite me, and I'll come.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. Again, we are celebrating the release of my new book called Multiple Sarcasm. multiplesarcasm.com, Amazon, iTunes. Just look for it. You'll find it. I want to thank all of my friends who have joined me to talk about the book, really talk about their relation to the book, and also really help promote it for me. At the top of the show, I mentioned that there's a person that I want to dedicate the book to, or that I did dedicate the book to. You don't see her name in the book, unfortunately, which is why I want to tell the story here on the show. And this is where it gets tough. Many years ago, when I was just getting into newspaper writing, I took a job at a big company, and I was the low man on the totem pole in the editorial department. Really didn't even do any writing. I was kind of just in the newsroom as like a helper. And on one of my first few days, I was toured around the building, and I went to the customer service area. So it wasn't really quite a call center so much as it was people would call in, yell at you because their newspaper didn't come. Or, subscriptions were handled, so like billing and things. It was all sort of done there. And I sat down with this woman. Her name is Marion. And she had the visor on, like she was playing poker. She had a visor because she couldn't handle the lights in there. And so the visor kind of helped her eyes. She would get migraines. And I sat with her. And it was almost like she was training me to do her job. But she was very nice. She was welcoming. She explained everything that was on the computer screen, everything she was doing after she talked with a customer that called in to complain about their subscription for the most part. And she would take it in stride. She was very professional. There was just something about us that we hit it off. We had a really good working relationship, even though we didn't actually work together. And so she said to keep in touch. And she started to call me kiddo. And so here I am, early mid-20s, and she was, I would say, at least 50 at the time. And was very motherly. And I, continued on with the company for only a few months. I actually left after about 6 months. And we kept in touch. Now, this was before the days of social media and things like that, so you'd actually call each other to communicate. There was no texting at the time. And so we did. We had very long phone calls. I know that, her calling, it wouldn't just be a 5-minute call. We'd be on the phone for a good 2 hours. And she was very supportive because I was living at home with my parents at the time. She knew that I was, just not being supported because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a writer. I didn't have a job with one of the major daily newspapers where I was a reporter and my name was in the paper all the time. And so I started to kind of just slug it out on my own. Now, fast forward 13 years later, I'm still a newspaper columnist in the paper that I was writing for back then. And then it's grown to other newspapers since then. And so Marion was always very interested in calling and hearing what I was up to, what I was doing. And then I started to get into radio, which, again, I've been doing for almost 13 years now. And even though she didn't necessarily understand internet radio at the time, she probed and asked those questions. And I didn't get that from my parents at home. My parents were very skeptical and cynical. They were of the mindset that you went to work and your boss gave you a paycheck and you would go at 8 o'clock and you'd leave at 4:30 or whatever the hell time it was, and you'd hate every minute of your job and you'd come home and grumble and, not think about it again until tomorrow morning. And that wasn't the case for me. And so instead of asking questions, my parents would do things like, well, how do you know they're going to pay you? Well, why do they want you when you don't even live in their province? And so the questions were always sort of phrased negatively and kind of seeming like they were poking holes in what I was doing or what I was attempting to do. And Marion was very supportive of that. And she knew what my parents were doing and what they were saying and not saying. And Marion, both of us are Ukrainian, and Marion had gone to Ukraine to be an election observer when Canada had sent a bunch of representatives, to go and oversee the election because they wanted to get things on the up and up in Ukraine back in the day. It's probably about 10 years ago or so. And Marion went twice. And when she came back, she said, I've got to show you these pictures from Ukraine. It's like going back in time, like to 1930, 1940. And I said, yeah, cool. I have no problem looking at the pictures. And I had bought a house at the time as well, and so she was excited for that. And I said, well, you know what, let's just get together and reconnect, because we haven't seen each other in so long. And she said, well, you know what, we're going to be doing Ukrainian Christmas at my house. Why don't you come for Christmas? And I thought it was a little bit awkward, like this is your family thing. I'm not family, I don't want to come. And I'd met her son, her daughter, her husband before, and I said, okay, fine, I'll come for Ukrainian Christmas. I've got a very big Ukrainian and Polish family, and we end up doing like 3 or 4 days. I say we're practically Jewish in terms of the number of days we spread out our celebrations. And so I thought, okay, in January or whatever it was, I'll go for Ukrainian Christmas. And after everybody had gone to bed, we go to the computer, and she starts to show me these pictures and videos from Ukraine. And there were so many times when we were laughing so hard. It was like when you were a kid and you were up late and you shouldn't have been, and oh, quiet, you're going to wake up mom and dad. That's actually what ended up happening. And so we were sitting there, and we were there for a really long time. And so she was, after you're sitting for a while, you're kind of like, oh, how do I sit comfortably? So at one point she turned the chair around, and she was sort of leaning into it. And again, being a woman in her late 50s, early 60s, she wasn't, the thinnest woman, but she wasn't, super obese. And we were laughing so hard at one point where she ended up leaning back, thinking that the back of the chair was there, and she fell flat on her back on the living room floor. And again, we were laughing so hard, and actually her husband did come out and go like, what are you guys doing? What's so funny? And so that's one memory that sticks out. And I was invited to her daughter's wedding, and I was part of her family is what ended up happening. And so she was very excited about me now going to like red carpet events in Toronto, and then I started to get into the States. Anybody who's starting out in their parents' basement in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and doesn't work for one of the big companies, it's pretty much unheard of that you're going to be on the red carpet of Celebrity Apprentice in New York City and talking to Donald Trump, right? If you don't have a gig with one of the big companies. But I was doing it, and it was happening, and she was very excited for me. And almost every phone call we would have, and even when we worked together, you're going places, kiddo, is what I would hear from her. And that was motivation to me. So when I would be applying for newspaper jobs at home, and I would be faxing my resume, and my mom would hear the fax machine squealing, she would come downstairs, even though I had my own little office set up. She would hear the fax machine. Oh, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm just faxing a resume to a newspaper in Alberta. Why would you do that? Nobody's going to hire you. You don't live there. You're not done school, blah, 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 blah. I had to drop out of school because my parents weren't going to help pay for college, and I had every intention of going back because that's what I wanted to do, was be a newspaper reporter. And so with no financial help from them, I said, I'll make work in the industry and I'll go back when I've got the money. I'll slug it out until then. Fast forward, I never really did go back to college, and I've done okay. Best-selling books, syndicated radio shows. And so Marion was very supportive. Marion was very excited when I bought my house. She was also very excited when I got my first dog, Ernie, a golden retriever. And I emailed her pictures all the time. She always wanted to see pictures of him. And she wanted to hear stories. And she wanted to meet him. And he was still a puppy at the time. And I said, we'll have to get together. Yeah, you can come by. You can see my house. You can meet the dog. It's almost like I've grown up. We haven't seen each other in so long. And then one night, it was nighttime. It was very dark, I remember. And I saw it was her calling, and I answered. And she was crying. She was hysterical, I'll say. And I couldn't understand what she was saying. And when she finally did calm down to a point, she said, I'm dying. I'm dying. And that's one of those things where you're like, okay, what? What do you, slow, what do you, I don't, say that again. I'm dying, Jeremy, I'm dying. And I said, I don't know what you mean. What, are you in a car accident? What, tell me. And she said that, I have cancer and I'm dying. And that's one of those moments where you want to know the details, but you don't want to know the details. You don't want to probe. You don't want to. She's already upset, right? So I don't want to start asking all these questions to make her more upset. If she wants to tell me the prognosis and what kind of cancer and all this, then she'll tell me. And she didn't. She didn't tell me the kind of cancer. And she said, I only have months to live, and I'm dying, and I'm dying. And I do the friend thing, and I say, "Come on, you're the strongest person I know. You're going to beat this. You're going to win. You're going to fight it, and you're going to have the last laugh." And wow. As I mentioned, we're live, everybody. They're saying to me, "Go to break, go to break," and I'm not. We're going to stick with this. And so I did the friend thing, and I said, "You're not dying. You're going to be fine." And within about a week or two, she was in a hospice. She was essentially hospitalized and was living there. And so, she called me from there because she was no longer living at home, and she called me from there. And I remember this because it was November 11th, ironically Remembrance Day. That's the day in Canada where we celebrate. Not celebrate. Well, we celebrate the end of the war, is what we do. But we remember the people who fell during the World Wars. And that's a holiday for a lot of people, or was a holiday for a lot of people in Canada. And I said, I'll come see you because I don't have to work today. I've got the day, and I'll come and visit you. And remember, this was only a few weeks after she told me that I'm dying. And I went there, and I almost didn't recognize her. And she'd really changed. And I don't want to, I hate to use the phrase, she'd gone downhill, but she'd gone downhill. To be frail looking, lost, a lot of weight, looked weak. But you also don't want to say that to somebody who knows they're dying. And so Marion still spun the conversation to be about me and asking about me and the success that I'm having. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You're going places, kiddo. And even when she's in pain and she's in her last moments, what a true friend to sit there and boost me up. And I said, she said, why didn't you bring Ernie? Why didn't you bring your dog? And I said, well, I didn't want to, I didn't know if you were going to have people here, and, I didn't arrange it with any. I didn't want to just bring a dog in here, barreling through. I don't know if that's allowed. And she said, it's fine, bring him next time. And the worst part is, there was no next time. And Marion never got to see my house that I was so proud to have bought with my own money. She never got to meet the dog that she would buy toys and treats for and give them to me, or send them even in the mail. She never got to meet the dog. And she never got to see any of the books that I've written. And when Marion was in her late 50s, she went back to school because she always wanted to be an English teacher. And so she became a teacher towards the end. And I know, because she knew that I was a writer and I wanted to be a writer, and was one of the people who would tell me, you should write a book one day. And I've had great success, as a best-selling author, as we've talked about on the show today. And she never did get a chance to read any of my books. And Marion died on November 30th, several years ago. And so I thought it would be fitting to not only dedicate the book to her, and I do it in my heart. It doesn't say her name in the book, but I wrote the book with her in mind. And it was just perfect timing that November 30th is a Friday when we do this show, and I thought, let's release the book on Friday, November 30th. So the book is for you, Marion. I feel weird now doing a cheap plug for my book after a story like that, but I didn't want to. I wasn't going to tell this story. I was just going to say this is who it's dedicated to, and thanks for listening. But we're live, and we don't have a time restriction, so fuck it, and I'm going to do it. It's those friends that boost you up and are there for you. Again, we're two totally different people. I was, early 20s at the time, and she's, 60-year-old woman, now at the time then a grandmother. And we just had that connection. And so, it was just, that's a friendship that you just can't, unlikely friends, right? Odd couple, however you want to describe it. So, all right, I got through that okay. I miss you, Marion. I love you. This book is for you. Check it out, everybody. It's called Multiple Sarcasm, multiplesarcasm.com. I will talk to you same time, same place next week, right here on The Scribble. Bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real